The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the Weymouth Community Access staff or its board of directors. WCA, in compliance with FCC regulations, is prohibited from exercising control over the content of independent member-produced public access programming.
Hello, this is Trish with the Back River Watershed Association, and I'm here with Linda D'Angelo again, President of the Back River Watershed Association. And have we had a number of historic filming events this season?
It's been a really thrilling season, and I've been so excited to see this and help to document it. So here we go with the Mill River.
Mill River, absolutely. But first, we came across Phil on the run, of course, talking about fish counts. And let's hear who he ran into on the run.
Yes, Thursday, May 13th, here on the Herring Run. We're at the pedestrian footbridge at the pond. This is where our last ladder is located. It's also where the electronic counter is that counts our fish. Yesterday we met last year's expectation. Well, quite, not quite. We passed 200,000 fish yesterday, which was quite nice. There doesn't seem to be too many more fish in the stream. We're going to check the counter in a second and see how we did. I'm expecting anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 more fish on the counter. And that'll bring us damn close to our last year's count, which is very surprising. I've never had 2 years back to back with the same count. It will be interesting to see how people look at that and try to analyze that type of situation. Quite generally, there's an increase or a decrease of several or tens of thousands of fish. In 2012, we doubled our count. We went from 200,000 to over 400,000 in 1 year. But since then, we've been losing about 30,000 fish a year. That adds up. So last year's count was 203,000. We're going to see how we do this year. And we're going to check the counter, like I said, in a few minutes. Interesting note, I was crossing over on the bridge at 8 a.m. 2 days ago, and I was met by two coyotes that were hunting together. They were coming east on the bridge, and I was heading west on the bridge. No fears from me. I've dealt with coyotes for several years now. I run into them on the Cape all the time when I'm fishing alone, 5-6 miles from my car. And I never had a problem with coyotes, to tell you the truth. They always flee from me, even though I call them to me. These coyotes, they ran in the opposite direction. They went about 2 houses up the street and cut through the backyard. They know the territory. They were born here, most likely. And they know every inch of it. They were hunting for something for food. Got to watch out for your cats and your dogs. That's responsibility is on you. Your cat should be trained to come in at night. Mine is. As soon as the sun goes down, my cat's at the front door. He comes in now. He knows about coyotes. I talk to him all the time about them. He certainly smells them in the neighborhood, and he is very fearful of them. So between 8 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning, my cat's in the house. And I advise you and the citizenship of the town to do the same thing. Keep your animals in at night. The responsibility is yours, not the coyotes. Thank you.
Linda, we have to remember we share this world with all sorts of wildlife. And as much as we think we can just go anywhere we want, we have to consider these guys are here too.
Exactly, and of course that is the most interesting mystery in nature. You know, we're all living things working together in this planet, and we have to educate ourselves as to how we're going to get along and keep the balance. And of course this brings up all these important areas of our ecosystem here in the Back River and throughout the watershed. So it's important that we have people like the herring wardens who give us good information, even about the coyotes. We didn't have coyotes here probably 25 years ago, but they're with us now.
I think they were always here. They were in the woods that weren't developed.
That's probably true, yeah. And if they lose their habitat, they're going to come into your backyard, which I have had happen.
We just need to learn to live together, huh?
Yeah, along with the turkeys and the red fox and all these other animals. So if we take away habitat of these animals, they're going to come closer to our own front doors.
That is very true. I think we have to make sure we understand that we don't know all the interconnections with all of the creatures in our world. So we can't assume that if they're gone, it's not important.
Exactly right.
Well, there's a lot that Phil has to do on the run every day, and we caught up with him and have a little clip of him talking about what he does every day.
Hi, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do this morning, or what we did this morning. We check the count every morning. I try to do it at the same time. Somewhere it's around 8 a.m. We had a few fish come through. About 2,100 fish came through. But the surprising thing is that matches last year's total. Added everything up and we're at 203, 189, and I think last year's total was 283, 8 something. I can't recall the exact figures. It's not important, but we're within a couple of hundred fish of last year. And if this holds true, it's sort of amazing because this has never happened in 26 years of me caring for these fish. Usually the counts are off by tens of thousands, either up or down. In 2012, we doubled our count. We went from 200,000 to 400,000. And since 2012, we've been on a downward spiral, losing between 10 and 30,000 fish a year. But this year, it seems to have equaled out. We're hoping for one more push of fish. There's a very good set of tides coming up in a few days. The good tides, in my mind, are anywhere between 4:30 a.m. or p.m. and 8:30 a.m. or p.m. Fish seem to really come on those tides. And it's been like that for 26 years. So that's an important documentation. And I've had other people around the run that have no idea that these tides play such an important role in the fish coming to the first ladder here in Weymouth to spawn. Anyhow, some of the things we did, we took the count. That's the obvious thing I'm here for. We tested the counter. There's a little test button, and we tested 6 times to make sure we're getting an accurate count of the fish. We checked the battery. There's make sure it's charging. We don't want a battery failure to disrupt the fish count at all. And we take a general observation of how many fish are waiting to go through the tubes. And the last few mornings, pretty much this season, there's been no fish here waiting to be counted in the holding area. These fish are coming through in the evenings between 7:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. The reason that they're making their way to the ladder at that time is we have so many cormorants here in an area called the ditch that is preventing fish passage. Now this is very important because the fish should be passing through these counters all day long at a steady stream. Now when the cormorants hold them up, they hit this fish ladder all at once. Within an hour and a half, we can pass 15,000 fish. Now, what this means is that fish are going through the tubes 2, 3, sometimes streaming through the tubes. They're not being counted accurately. So, if anything, this electronic count here is less than it should be. These fish are not being counted properly, and it's the location of this fish counter at this particular ladder that's causing this error in count. If this fish counter was located at Nico's, we'd have an average all day long of between 30 and 40 fish a minute, which would easily stream through the tubes by single file. Now, that would give us a much more accurate count, and I've been pestering the Division of Marine Fisheries to move the counter down to Nico's. So far, we haven't been able to do that. We'll see what happens in the future. Thank you.
A lot involved here, Linda, huh?
There certainly is, and of course, our herring wardens are so diligent in their work, and particularly Phil, that we like to showcase a lot of his work. He puts so many hours in every day. It's a very demanding responsibility, but a very satisfying one, and he's illustrated that through his, probably 25 years or more of working on the herring run, so he has a very intimate knowledge. And he also understands the importance of the water levels and the baffle boards that need to be changed so that our fish can get up those ladders safely. The velocity, he calculates all of this information, and this is becoming more of an issue here in Weymouth when we start talking about water and water levels and what is our capacity. And I know that you, Trish, have spent a lot of your time in the last, decade or so understanding water management here in Weymouth, and we're very grateful to your expertise on that subject.
Well, that's Phil again when he talks about the herring and the herring run. And we need to consider the demand the
Yes.
herring run has on our water supply.
Absolutely.
We had a very historic event, May 3rd, Old Swamp River spawning between the north and southbound routes of
Very,
Route 3.
very exciting. I've heard all about it from residents there that are concerned about the fishery there.
And now Mill River, we have this historic spawning documentation,
So it's
underwater footage
very, very
too.
exciting to see.
When we were first looking at the footage after we got off the river that day, I had to call Scott Dowd and tell
right.
him that we had this footage. And as we're looking underwater and we're seeing what we think are eggs, and he's talking about, well, the fertilized eggs are a pinkish color and the unfertilized ones are kind of white. As we looked at that footage, it's hard not to say, hey, I think this is what we're seeing. And it just makes that part of the Mill River and all of those areas on Old Swamp and Mill River that Phil is calling out, that Robert Kearns is calling out as most important as spawning habitat. We need to protect it. A very interesting study I came across. Funny what you find when you're cleaning your office. This is the water supply assessment for the Mill River and Old Swamp River basins, and this was done in July of 1998. And there's a couple things that jump out at me, because Whitman's Pond and the watershed has been studied.
Sure.
And every time they want to proceed with something, they always start with another study. But the one thing in going through these studies that I noticed was there's a common recommendation. Implementation of water conservation, demand management,
Right.
and monitoring of growth is required to kind of manage this watershed. I know that the water flow from the herring run has to be considered as a demand, just
Absolutely.
like how much water do you use
Exactly.
and need. But it's interesting when we go to these planning board meetings and we hear about another apartment coming up. There's one coming up on 53 that's right by the river. And you ask them, well, what's our water capacity? And having been involved in the Sustainable Water Management Initiative meetings, talking about safe yields and understanding Weymouth's water supply, we did get an EPA grant to look at, a task grant to look at our water permit standing and pumping information and safe yield. But there's one sentence that I have to wonder, if this confuses me, what other people would think when they hear that. So in a correspondence from DEP, one of the statements, and I had to ask for clarification, Weymouth's capacity to meet daily limits are controlled by their capacity to treat and supply water on any single day. So when you hear that, and then you hear that our water treatment plant can treat, so many million gallons per day. I don't even want to say that number to put a wrong number out, but it's certainly a lot more than the safe yield.
Right.
So I think we're back to this awareness and education on what are these numbers, and really look at them in terms of what this natural heritage requires to be supported.
Absolutely. We don't want to risk a water shortage for any reason. Obviously, our residents, our nature, these are very, very serious issues, and as I understand, the town is very concerned with this issue as well.
They are.
And
they have to be.
We have to look at alternatives to help us with this. It's obvious that there has to be more focus on the development issue. We're developing at a great speed here in the town again, and so that demand becomes a very serious problem, especially if we had a drought, God forbid. But certainly when we look at our herring run, our health of our rivers, and all of the whole ecosystem that supports this, we're looking at all these other fish. I mean, there are 31 native species of finfish alone in Back River Estuary, 150 species of birds, some very rare. We look at all of the improvements that have been made throughout the river, but still in all, we have this problem of capacity, and water quality and quantity is really at the forefront of the watershed focus right now.
It's a question of a limit. There's definitely a hard limit on the water that we can supply.
That's right.
And as we look up the Mill River and we see the spawning that's just as it's going into Whitman's Pond, there's a dam up on Mill River that we did a site visit for. We have a clip to.
Linda D'Angelo here from the Back River Watershed Association. It's a gorgeous day here in April. I'm on the Mill River, and there's been a lot of concerns from residents and as well as Mayor Hedlund about the condition of the Mill River, the need for our water supply to be better managed, and resources like this that are part of Weymouth's natural heritage, and a river that has great importance because it helps to feed the Whitman's Pond, which is a critical water body that is spawning ground for our Weymouth herring and other fish. So one of the residents here has been bringing a lot of attention to this river, and so we have her here today, Kathy Swain, who lives right here on Mill River, and Weymouth herring warden Phil Lofgren. So we want to be able to give them an opportunity to talk about the river, but we want to see our rivers looking healthier with more water coming through. And so I'm going to turn this over to Kathy Swain, the resident here on Mill Street. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
You want to tell us about the Mill River a little bit?
Yeah, Trish, I don't know if you can pan down, but this is the Mill River. Its source is Great Pond, and I have some real concerns about the amount of water entering the river. Now, this river looks good right now, but this summer there'll be no water in it. And for the past 3 or 4 years, the river has gone dry in the summer. Now, during the day or at night or evening, I watch a lot of animals come down here to get a drink of water and then head off. And I'm very fearful of the fact that this river in the summer now has no water. In the spring, there used to be snapping turtles that came out of the river up onto the land, laid their eggs, and now there's no snapping turtles, which is another indicator that something's wrong, and I think they've left because the river dries out in the summer. And that's about my main concern. The problem, I think, and I'm not an expert on this, is the amount of water that they're pumping out of the river. I've sent Trish a picture of the dam. There's no water entering the river. It's spring. The water is about 5 or 6 inches below the height of the dam, and I don't see it ever catching up. So this is a natural resource that we're losing. and I hate to see it lost. And we should work to have stewardship. And this is the river that feeds Whitman's Pond. And the health of Whitman's Pond depends on the health of this river. So it's all connected. So I'm hoping the town realizes it before it's not too late that we need to address water in the town. Thank you.
So we're looking at the condition of the Mill River here. We're looking at the Mill River Dam. We're wondering the actual purpose for the dam to exist at this time. We're looking at dam removals to increase herring and smelt population, and serious efforts should be made to restore this area. This Mill River has a very important history in the town, and we feel that today losing our water sources is becoming more of an issue. So we have to seriously look at grants for dam removal here, restoring this river, and knowing how important this is to the overall health of the Back River watershed, and to increase the herring and the smelt that could come through this river. So it's a beautiful place. It needs the attention, and I think we're going to have to get to work on this project.
All right. Hey, we're looking at a piece of the Mill River here, just downstream from where Weymouth Lumber Company used to be. Hey, this water looks pretty pristine to me. It looks like it would be considered a cold water fisheries. Not only could we get herring up to this dam, and it would improve the spawning habitat for Weymouth's herring, but you could also introduce brook trout here, most likely. It looks like good habitat for brook trout, especially in the upper regions here. It's heavily wooded, and this source of this river is wetland water. This is spring-fed water. Looks great to me. I think Brad Chase should take a look at this a little more carefully and do an assessment on getting fish back to Great Pond. If we went to MWRA water, it would certainly be doable. Well, thanks for listening. That's it. Herring could get by shores, they'd be here. If herring could get by Shaw's, the riprap behind Shaw's supermarket, the fish would definitely be stacked up here below this dam obstruction. I don't see any river herring present. They definitely would be here now. I'm looking at all the little pools that are created and I see nothing. The obstruction seems to be Shaw's. How nice would it be to get them back this far? Even if we couldn't get them by any further. This would be improved habitat. It's definitely spawning habitat. Beautiful river. All from the wetlands. No discharge from Great Pond here. All wetland discharge. Beautiful. Appears to be flowing at the same velocity as Old Swamp River, around 17 cubic feet per second. I've always said that. The mill and the swamp flow together at the same rate. Beautiful, beautiful day to be here.
Am I supposed to talk or is Phil supposed to talk?
Talk right in the mic.
I can ask questions.
All right, you can ask questions.
Okay, Kathy, what are we seeing here?
This is the Mill River, which starts up at Great Pond and travels down. It's a great portion of the river because it's away from homes. And behind me is a dam. The purpose of the dam I'm not sure of, but over here on my right, there used to be a lumber yard years ago, so maybe the dam was used to power the tools. I don't know. But years ago, I would come and see fish up here, and as of recently, I haven't seen that many fish.
Okay, well, it seems to be a problem at Shaw's Supermarket with getting herring to this point. There's riprap behind Shaw's that the fish just can't climb. I know if they could make it through Shaw's, they would be here in a heartbeat. This is prime spawning habitat from what I can see, and they would definitely be stacked up here below the dam. They'd be very visible. So let's get fish up beyond Shaw's and get them up to the Old Mill River. Let's take out that dam too. How do you feel about that?
I'd love to take the dam out. Next week, I'm going to apply for a restoration grant that they come out and they do remove the dam. I'm not sure whether we'll get it, but we're going to start the application process.
You know, that sounds like a very healthy project to take on, Kathy. Thank you very much for bringing us up here.
You're welcome. Just don't tell anybody else about this secret place. Thank you.
We'll keep it a secret, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's surprising if you hadn't been there, and I was really delighted with the whole sort of adventure between the fish coming through and the idea that, you know, these fish historically went all the way up to Great Pond. So all these connecting rivers between the Back River estuary, where the fish are coming through from the channel into Herring Brook, they're going to spawn Whitman's Pond, Old Swamp River, Mill River, Great Pond. This is really the track historically. And so this is an exciting time because we have great opportunities for dam removal and restoration of our rivers.
Very important. And I hope we can open our eyes to lessons learned from past attempts at doing things. Now, we talk about the Snup Dam, and we're looking to get that removed. And again, unintended consequences. You know, that something was done, and in retrospect, probably not the best thing to do.
Right.
We see behind Shaw's on Mill River that there's, during that development, it seems that a herring ladder would be needed to kind of get it up to the next part of the river, when there used to be a natural way to go, and there's the result of development, from what I understand.
Right.
So how do we go back and not be afraid to look at these projects and recognize their unintended consequence and do some remediation?
Exactly. I mean, historically speaking, we know that Weymouth, of course, is the second oldest town in the Commonwealth, and that there were so many mills and industries that operated at the turn of the century particularly. But at this juncture, we see the evidence and the wisdom of the dam removals in helping our fisheries to be restored. And we know that our herring run is essential to that health. And this is a worldwide food web issue. So again, I like to stress that Weymouth really is in a position to make very wise decisions going forward. And I know that this town is capable of it.
and being a leader.
Yes.
It's not just the town, it's also the people in the State House. We, of
Right.
course, always thank them as
Right, of course.
they see what's going on. And it seems that once they have that awareness, they kind of act on it.
Exactly.
And we do have 2 successful projects that were completed
Yep.
with the help of these partnerships. So I'm hopeful we can keep moving forward with it.
It's a great time for Weymouth right now with the flood control improvements done down at the Lower Jackson Square part of the Herring Run. We're very grateful for that. And also looking forward to the Snup Dam removal. We talk about Old Swamp River and how exciting it was to see the fish coming through there. And so, you know, it's a cold water fishery there. We know that there's trout coming through there as well. So this is really an important and exciting opportunity for our town. So this has been a great spring.
It has been a great spring, very eye-opening, and I hope that we can have those difficult conversations.
Sure.
And make
We can do it.
improvements.
We'll do it.
Well, we have one more clip to show you from the spawning on the Mill River, and thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.